Can you explain to me how the book we were talking about the other night when I was having dinner with you about book deals and
Yes.
how they work, which I think is fascinating in terms of getting... How did you get your first book deal and the advances?
So I was... It can be different for everyone, but most of the time you just have to put together maybe a sample of 10 chapters or so, a synopsis and a bio on yourself, and then you would present that to a literary agent. And if the literary agent likes it, then they'll sign you on. So that's your first step, because you need your literary agent to go to the publishers. Publishers do accept unsolicited work, but you've got a much better chance of getting that.
So there's a middleman between you and...
Absolutely. Like with any entertainment thing, you need an agent to do that negotiation stuff for you.
Right.
And so it was for Air Kisses, which was my first book about a beauty editor. It was a real stretch for me. And
yeah, I bet.
but I was at that point where I was like, man, it's always about fashion. It's always going to Devil's Prada. It's always about... all the TV shows, the reality shows are about fashion, but beauty actually is an amazingly hilarious and over-the-top privileged and blessed job. I don't think a lot of people know how good we have it. We're being flown to Byron Bay for lunch on a small jet and back again.
What?
This was before the recession.
Yeah.
So but it was like, all right. So I wanted to write about that, and luckily, again, timing. But so my agent took me on, and then they put the book out to all the publishers. I think I got about 4 no's in a row.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Because it would make you very vulnerable too.
I was like 25. I was like, I also didn't really care. I'm like, I just want to write. I want to get all my stories down, because I had ADD. I was like, I'd already started a blog and I was working full time at Cosmo. But I was like, I need something else. And so thankfully 2 publishers then wanted it, and there was a bit of a bidding war, which is what you dream of.
Awesome. God.
And but I went with Penguin. I adore Penguin, and they're very, very good with commercial women's fiction. And they've got amazing authors in that realm that I really admire. Like, Maggie Alderson, Marion Keyes and those guys. So I felt like I was in good hands, and they've been grooming me the whole time, and they're wonderful. Yeah.
And so then they say, okay, we're going to give you a deal. You have how long to work on it?
Well, you sort of work that out together. I think I'd almost written most of the book at that point.
Right.
And then they help you. Once you submit the first draft, they'll do a big thematic edit and go through it with you. And it was my first book, and it needed quite a bit of work.
Yeah, right.
Because you don't really know. I mean, I still don't know what I'm doing. I just try and go with the narrative.
Yeah.
So they'll give you a payment on signing,
right,
payment on delivery, and payment on shelf.
Okay.
But you have to earn your advance back before you start earning royalties. So when people get, which I didn't know for a long time, like people like getting these $1 million advances, I would just view as a curse, because you have to then make that back in sales.
So you have to, so if say you get an advance of $1 million, you have to pay them back the $1 million, and then you get, you know, whatever.
They'll never take the money back or anything, but if you were to go in with a massive, because I'd heard all these stories, so I went in going, I want a massive advance.
Yeah.
So arrogant, so 25. And then I was, my agent was like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sell through, then you're kind of dead to the publishing world.
Right.
Because you're that girl who got that big advance and then didn't sell through.
Right.
So it's much better to go understated and just hope that the book, and each book that I release helps the other books. People buy the backlog, and it takes time.
Because I think it was Tony Martin who said you don't write a book to make money from it.
He's right. He's very right. You do it. They're massive vanity projects, really.
Yeah, right.
It's a long time. I just finished a book. It took me a year, all up. I had a few distractions in there, but it takes you a year, and you put a lot of work into it, and you hope that people enjoy it. And then, I mean, non-fiction's a bit different. It tends to be a bit more commercially successful, and you get a lot more feedback on that.
Right.
But I like doing both.
Yeah.
Just for my own brain to have a break.
Yeah, right. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I just go in and I see a book, but you don't realise all the backstory.
So much work. There's so much work in a book. And it's a dying industry, which is really sad, because there's so many great writers with great stories. But I like also that there are new formats and new ways to tell stories. And ebooks and e-readers are certainly not the death of books, it's just a format change.